Welcome back to the show, folks. Today's episode is for all you people who might think that sleep is a waste of time, or maybe you only wish that you could sleep and think that sleep is a waste of time. The fact of the matter is that sleep issues are a major issue in our society. And today's guest is an incredible leader in this space. And I think you're going to really enjoy what he has to say. His name is Dr. Michael Breus. So before we jump into the episode, of course, I'm going to thank you guys for being here, because thanks to you, this show is growing by leaps and bounds, reaching new heights and new people. And I just love all the comments and the feedback I get from you. So please keep it coming. If you get value from this episode, you know what to do. Send it out to your friends, networks, anybody you think will also get value from it. And if you have a minute today, please do leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to the podcast on. Other than that, I'm just going to send you to natnidham.com. When you get a minute, you can sign up for the newsletter there, and you can also learn about my membership community. Lots of stuff over there as well. So without further ado, we're going to thank a couple of our sponsors, talk a little bit about the episode, and then get you right in there. Hey folks, just a quick reminder that all of the information presented in this podcast is for information purposes only. No medical advice, no diagnosing, no treatments suggested here. Before you try anything that you hear about or learn about here, make sure that you check with your medical provider. If you've ever bragged about being able to fall asleep the second your head hits the pillow, this episode might be your wake-up call, literally. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Michael Breus, clinical psychologist and board-certified sleep specialist, and the author of 4 books, including The Power of When and Energize. We talk about why sleep, hydration, and breathwork should be your baseline before you chase the latest supplement or tech. You heard that? Before the supplements, before the tech, you got to get the basics right. And this is what we're going to talk about in this episode. He also busts the 5 a.m. club myth, explains how your chronotype changes throughout your life, and drops some hilarious truth bombs about dolphins, insomnia, and yes, even sex timing. If you care about getting good sleep, you're going to want to hear this one. Welcome to the show, Dr. Michael Breus. It is a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, now that we've gotten through the technical issues of me, having certain buttons pushed that shouldn't be pushed, making you think that your mic wasn't
Lost my
working.
mind. Yes.
We're all good. We're all good. And at least I owned it. I could have said, I don't know, it just started working all of a sudden.
You could have blamed it on me. I would have bought it for sure. I've been having one of those days.
Yeah, no. Are you having one of those days?
I am definitely having one of those days.
Well, we're going to change that.
I'm excited to do so.
It's changed now automatically because I was responsible for the missing volume. So there you go. So Dr. Breus,
Yes.
You're the sleep guy.
I am.
And you are I think that probably the sleep chronotype is certainly, that's when I heard about you first. And this is going back a number of years, because this whole idea of associating oneself with an animal is a really and you get people walking around going, bear? I don't want to be a bear. I want to be a wolf, or I want to be a dolphin. And it turns out being a dolphin, when it comes to sleep, it's not so hot.
Not so hot. Exactly.
So I'd love to invite you to kind of let's just start there, because you have a new book, which I actually, when I started listening to it, and then I bought the ebook, because I was like, the problem with listening to a book is you need as many hours as it takes to read it. And I was in the world of, no, I need to get through this thing. So, but what I love about the book, that first statement that you make, which is being healthy doesn't have to cost money. And, I personally talk a lot about certain things like peptides and bioregulators. And whenever people ask me about those, I always start with, look, if you haven't addressed your foundations, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you take. It doesn't matter what gizmos you buy. It's really, it might move the needle a little bit, but man, you would get so much more lift if you could actually get yourself to homeostasis. So I love that opening of the second book. So I do want to get there.
Yeah, well, so that was really the impetus for the book. So I'll tell you what happens to me. I go to the gym every day. As you can tell, I'm still in my gym clothes.
Good for you.
And, I see people walking around with this dazed look on their face. They're like, what do I do next? Do I do resistance? Do I get on a treadmill? Do I go have a green drink? Do I do a hot sauna? Do I do a cold plunge? Like, at the end of the day, wellness is too freaking complicated.
I know,
Okay.
and then what does my watch say? Oh my god, like, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah, I've been getting asked questions lately about sleep maxing, right? Where you try to do as many things as you possibly can to improve your sleep. It's like, this is stupidity at its finest, as far as I'm concerned. So when I wrote the book, I was really trying to understand, like, what are the fundamentals? Like, what are the basics that we all need to get to? Peptides are interesting, circadian schedules are interesting. All this stuff is interesting, but at the end of the day, if you're not breathing, if you're not hydrating, and you're not sleeping, you're screwed. Like, you are screwed. Like, there's no question about it. And it's so funny because, I live in this wellness world, right? Where you're on podcasts, you're doing television, you're writing books, and everybody's all about optimization. And we got to, like, take a freaking breath.
Thank you.
Okay.
I
Like,
once almost got fired for saying that to someone.
yeah, I usually drop the F-bomb, so I didn't want to do that on your pod, but, like, I'm just done. I'm so over so many people coming up with all these different ideas. And I want to be clear. Like, I think I was part of the problem at one point because, you start to think about it and people say, well, how do I optimize my sleep? And what do I need to do? And what ended up happening is I really started to understand more about, like, what's really problematic. And the problem is everybody's overwhelmed, right? And nobody knows where to start and nobody knows what to do. And so the goal of the book was really quite simple, was these are the three places you start. If all you do is hydrate, learn about something called breathwork, and improve your sleep, I can assure you your life will get better. Okay. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter what else you try. I can assure
yeah,
you that will get better. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. The one thing that's interesting, though, is one of the questions that I get asked is, why'd you write a book on things that our body automatically does already, Michael? Right?
well,
Which
yeah,
is,
well, that's
it's
yes,
right. It's a great question, right? And so
great
here's
question.
why: because nobody's doing them right. Okay,
Mhm.
and like, it's kind of like going for a run, right? So if you go out and you say, you know what, today I'm going to jog and I'm going to turn it into a run and I'm going to do what I need to do and it's going to be great, right? And you have no training in running, you have no understanding of what your stride needs to be. You don't fill up with electrolytes up beforehand and it's hot outside. You don't like, all these things happen if you don't know better and you don't do them correctly, right? And so what ends up happening is you do something that isn't so great. Now, can everybody run? Yeah, everybody can run. But if you really want to get something out of it, and by the way, I'm not saying the optimal. I'm not saying that you have to get the optimal thing out of sleep, the optimal out of hydration, or the optimal out of breath work. But like, this unit, it doesn't work if those three things aren't moving in the right direction. And it turns out that they're all related. But the big thing is like, we could all use a little life coaching. I think we could all use a little health coaching. And so from that aspect, my goal here is simply to make people more aware of things like breath work. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I was going to graduate school and getting my PhD in clinical psychology, I wish they taught us about breath
Yeah,
work. Number
yeah.
one, just for the students. I mean, let's be fair, it's a nerve-wracking environment. But more so, do you know how many people I could have helped if I knew and understood breath work after I graduated? I mean, it took almost 20 years before I got introduced to the idea of breathwork. Now, look, there's lots of different people who do breathwork. Some are controversial and all of that nonsense. But at the end of the day, box breathing, it's
Yeah,
kind of hard to screw that up,
yeah.
and it's a very simple task that can lower your heart rate, make you more calm, and allow you to kind of get where you need to go. So I felt confident that I could bring forward enough simplicity to these things so that people could do them and they don't cost a dime, right? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't want to pay whatever it is, a couple of $100 a month for some green drink and 12 supplements and all this other nonsense. Like, when all I really need to do is have some nice filtered water, breathe a little bit each day, and go to sleep regular schedule. Life's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the fancy stuff is all, or the 2.0 to 3.0 stuff, there can be value to it depending on the individual, but you're not gonna get the lift if you haven't addressed the basics. Like you
Right.
just,
It's like
I
1% on the side, you know?
well, exactly. I mean, I had a teacher once who said, "Look, here's the challenge. You cannot optimize a body that's not already in a homeostatic state. Like if you're
That's a
not at
great
baseline,
statement. That's a
if y
great statement.
yeah, like you just can't. Like if you're you know, it was interesting to me when I saw the book that was it's what's the order of it? Sleep,
Sleep, drink, breathe.
drink, breathe, and I'm like, "Well, wait, where's eat? Where's exercise?" But, you know, interestingly enough,
No
if you
need.
do those first 3 things properly, the other 2 fall into place.
Yes, they do. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the comment that I've gotten from so many people. It's like, "Well, what about diet, Michael?" You know, you can go 30 days without food. You can't go 30 days without sleep. You'll lose your freaking mind, right? You can't by the way, you can't go 2 days without water, really, right? And I think the world's record for holding your breath is like 24 minutes, which is from these super duper deep divers, you know, who flood their lungs with oxygen and nitrogen and do all this stuff. I think like the regular record is like 6 minutes or something. So the goal was, let's take the 3 things that you can't live without and let's figure out how to do those,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh,
You can't optimize without homeostasis. I'm gonna take that one. That's a good one.
it's yours.
Thanks.
Off you go. See, you got something out of the
I
podcast
know.
right
This is
out of the
this is
gate.
turning good already.
All right. So, but let's back up a little bit to the chronotypes because, like I said before, everybody loves to have an animal, a spirit animal. And people, I'm sure, get really sad. Some people are like, oh, I'm so happy to be a teddy bear. And other people are like, no, dude, like a bear is like lugging around. I don't want to be a bear. And half the population's a bear. And everybody else has to fit into the bear schedule, which really sucks. And I thought what was interesting also about the book is you talk about how and I found this really fascinating. You're different animals at different stages of life, right? And so this idea, because I often will talk to people about how your nutritional needs will change based on what stage of life you're at and what you're doing and all the different things. And so we can be a lion when we're a baby, but you know, we end up settling, I guess, in adulthood into whatever that other pattern is. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? How you kind of came to that whole
Yeah,
place?
let's double tap on that just so everybody knows what we're talking about. Okay. So, first of all, what we're talking about is a concept called chronotypes. Now, you might not have heard of the term chronotype, but every listener and every watcher has heard of a few of these things that are kind of the vernacular. If anybody out there's ever been called an early bird or a night owl, those are chronotypes. Okay. And I want to be clear, they're genetic. You don't get to change them whenever you feel like it. Okay. Which makes it very, very interesting. So, I'll tell you the story of how this all kind of came about. Is I had a patient who I failed. I mean, I could not get this person to sleep. It didn't. We tried pills, we tried cognitive behavioral therapy, we tried everything you can imagine, and I failed. When I fail with a patient, I bring them in, and I start interviewing them, and I interview them for extended periods of time because clearly I must have missed something, a lab result, I didn't get a piece of information, like something's wrong here because I'm a clinician. Like that's what I do is I work with people about their
Right.
sleep. And at one point in the interview, she said to me, she said, you know, this is when I was practicing on the East Coast. I used to live in Atlanta, Georgia. She said, you know, if I just lived in California, everything would be great. Like, please explain. She said, well, it's a 3-hour time difference, Michael. And like, I hate getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I hate going to work, you know, and being at work by 8. It's awful for me. Like, I don't even feel like a human until noon. And I was like, well, hold on a second. Like, why don't you just change your work hours? And why don't we talk with your family and change your time, you know, that you have responsibilities for your family? And she said, oh, she said, I got to be honest with you, Michael. I fall asleep at work all the time. I'm on probation. She said, if I'm being honest with you, I think I'm getting fired next week. And I said, well, can I call your boss and talk with your boss? So she gave me permission to do so. So I called the boss on a Monday, believe it or not. And I said, look, hey, my name's, you know, Dr. Breus. I'm a sleep doctor. I'm working with this person. She's giving me permission to talk to you. Can she come in at 10 and leave, or no, 11 and leave at 7, right? Still 8 hours, but let's just shift it by 2 hours. He said, Michael, I don't care what you do. She's getting fired on Friday. Like, okay, great. No pressure. So no problem. I call on Friday. He picks up the phone. Literally the first words out of his mouth, I have 3 more employees I want you to talk to.
Come on.
Swear to God.
Smart man.
Unbelievable, right?
Nice.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm on to something here. So we started to really look at this idea of chronotypes, or where does your body has its own internal sleep schedule. Now, one of the things we talked about briefly was this idea that it changes over the course of your lifetime. So
Mhm.
let's start at the beginning of life and give people what I call the chrono longevity tour, right?
Okay.
So here's what happens. You're a baby, you're an infant. What are you? You're an early bird. By the way, I've changed the name of all of these.
Oh,
So
you have?
you'll
Okay.
appreciate this. They're no longer birds. I'm a mammal, right? I'm not a bird. So I wanted to choose animals. By the way, when you're writing a book about chronotypes and you're sitting in there with your editor and they're trying to come up with what do you do with these different categories, one person wanted it to be colors, one person wanted it to be crystals. I was like, no, we're doing animals, and I want animals that actually represent the chronotypes that we're going to have here. It turns out nobody wants to be a porcupine. Nobody wants to be a platypus, right? So I had to also have inspirational animals that would be able to do the job. So early birds turn into lions because who wouldn't want to be the king or queen of the jungle, right? I
Mhm.
love that idea. Lions represent 15% of the population, but they also are babies, itty bitty, teeny tiny squishies, right? When you've got an itty bitty baby, what do? They go to bed really early and they wake up really early, just like a lion. Then you start to move into like toddler middle school range. And what happens? Their circadian rhythm shifts to what used to be called a hummingbird, but what I call a bear. Bears, as an adult, bears have a tendency to want to go to bed around 10, wake up around 7. But as toddlers, they go to bed around 7, they wake up around 7, right? It's kind of cool. Then all of a sudden, adolescence hits and teenagers hit. And man, do things get complicated. But from a sleep perspective, it's awful. What ends up happening? They want to stay up until 2 and sleep until 12. I mean, right now it's 11:20 my time. I got a 20-year-old who's still asleep over here, right? And so this is exactly what happens is this entire circadian shift. Once you hit about age 25 or so, the gene seems to become more expressed at that point in time, and your true chronotype kind of comes out. And then you move into like this whole area of which one of the 3 or 4 are there. Now, to be fair, up until this moment, I haven't told anybody anything that they don't already know, right? There's an early bird, we call them lions. There's a night owl, we call them wolves. There are people in the middle, we call them bears. This isn't rocket science so far. Here's where it got interesting. When I looked at the genetics, because again, this is a genetic state, here's what we understood is it's about temperature change and hormone distribution. Okay. So what's interesting here is if you're a lion as an adult, here's what happens is right around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, your melatonin naturally just turns off and your core body temperature heats up. And guess what? You wake up because that's what your body says it's supposed to do. Now, if you're a night owl like me, what we call a wolf, that process doesn't occur until about 7:30 in the morning. Same process, right? So here's what's happening if people are starting at different times of their day, and then their day is very predictable. And so what we were able to do is start to map this idea out of, okay, if people's hormones wake them up at 4:30 in the morning, what else is happening there? Well, we know their cortisol and adrenaline is up in the morning. So
Mhm.
we know that's actually a decent time for them to have exercise because they're going to be pretty stressed. We know that adding caffeine at that early stage is probably not the best idea. You should probably wait 90 minutes after you wake up so your cortisol and adrenaline naturally start to come down. So it gets very, very interesting in terms of the recommendations that we can make for people. But again, I haven't told anybody anything that's, unbelievably super fantastic until we get to this idea of the dolphins. So people always ask, Michael, I get the lion, I get the bear. Why dolphins? Dolphins
Mhm.
sleep unihemispherically. So half of their brain is asleep while the other half is awake and looking for predators. And that really represents my insomniacs, the people who have anxiety or difficult time sleeping. Those people, when we look at their genetics, it's very, very interesting. So they can be a primary dolphin, which means they've got all this wonky stuff that's kind of going on in their genetics, specifically in the PER3 range. You and I were talking before a little bit about genetics. That's kind of where we have a tendency to see that stuff. But here's the other thing. People can be a dolphin by circumstance, right? So, Michael, what do you mean by that? It's called menopause, okay? So what happens during menopause? Your hormones go wonky, your temperature goes out the window, and guess what? Your sleep sucks,
Yeah.
right? So what we're seeing here is we're seeing, again, these different life stages are having effect on our biology. And the biology is, if we don't understand where biology is and we don't respect it, we're fighting against the biology. So as an example, there's a buddy of mine who wrote a book called The 5 a.m. Club, Robin Sharma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Really great book. I walked up to him and I'm like, dude, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. 85% of people cannot, I repeat, cannot wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and have it be healthy and have it work out for them. Another buddy of mine, Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning, right?
Yeah.
Hal and I are very good friends. And I'm in his documentary saying, hey, everybody, figure out when your miracle morning should be. Everybody's miracle morning shouldn't be at 6 o'clock in the morning, especially for a night person like me, right? I not only do I not like mornings, I don't like morning people. Okay. They're so chipper all the time. Like, I'm not in the mood. Okay. Like I'm a true night owl. Now, here's what's also interesting is your circadian rhythm seems to set from about 20 till about 50 or so. So I'm 57 years old. And here's what happens. Then it starts to walk backwards again. So if
Mm-hmm.
you ever call up your mom or your dad, or if your grandparents are still alive and you say, hey, I want to come over for dinner, what do they say? I'll meet you at 4:30, 5 o'clock, right? Why? Because their circadian rhythms are going backwards. So this is something that changes over the course of your lifetime. There are different major events that will occur that will have an effect on this. But the utility of understanding your chronotype becomes very, very helpful for a lot of different things. Number one, sleep, right? So obviously that's my area of expertise. That's the thing I like to talk about most, but there are hundreds of circadian researchers around the world. I'm by far not the only one by any stretch of the imagination. We have over 220 studies in my book, The Power of When, where we were looking at this idea set of chronotypes. We really dig into it deep there. Now, fast forward to my most recent book, Sleep, Drink, Breathe. Here is one of the edges. Like, if you want the ultimate kind of hack into your life, figure out your chronotype. And let me explain to you how it can be utilized. I'll give you one example and then I'll jump into your question, right? With my kid. So my daughter, I was in charge during high school of waking up the kids. Now, this is
Didn't you
never
get the plum job?
right. This is never fun. But I would walk in, her name's Carson, and I'd say, hey, Carson, I'm waking her up and kind of opening up the shades. I'm like, hey, what have you got on the plate today? Anything interesting? Any classes, any tests, anything like that? And I would get, ugh, Dad, leave me alone. Like, it was grunting. Like, I don't even think it was monosyllables. It was, cave woman time, right? But if I walked into her room at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock when she come home from school and I say, hey, what was on your plate today? I get a 90-minute conversation with arguably one of the most important people in my life, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
that's how this works, is when you know and understand your partner's chronotype, your children's chronotype, your own chronotype, you can plan activities based on when your hormones are naturally at these states, and you just do them better. And that's the real concept behind all of this. The dolphin is an interesting one simply because we know that there are certain behavioral situations and biological situations that cause incredibly disrupted sleep. And so we try to teach people kind of what some of those boundaries look like.
Yeah. So great. Thank you for all that. So I have a question. How do people draw the line between their behavior driving when they sleep and when they're able to wake up and their chronotype? So, for example, you have someone who insists, like, people push through their sleep window, right? Like
Oh, all the time.
I think about, like, you have a window for sleep. You're falling asleep in front of the TV at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and you're like, no, I'm not falling asleep because I need to watch this episode of XYZ. And but you don't, but you do. And then you go and you get ready for bed. And then by the time you've managed to get your butt into bed, it's 11:30, and you've
Yep.
missed that window, right? And you're screwed.
Yeah, you are totally screwed.
You're screwed.
Absolutely.
But where do we draw, because that person could say, well, I'm a night owl, but they're not, because they still wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
no matter what they do. So is it the wake up time that is really your best indication?
There you go. So you've nailed it. So
Okay.
if people get one thing from us are discussing today, it's keep your wake up time consistent. Okay.
and natural, right? Like
Right.
almost without an alarm.
I haven't used an alarm in almost 20 years.
No.
But to be fair, like my body's used to this. Like I mean, I don't have this incredibly regimented life, but I am fairly, strict in some of the things that I do because I find that it helps give me this level. Like I've had no coffee today. Okay. Like all I've had is I've worked out and I've had a high protein breakfast and I have this much energy, no problem. And I will until 6 o'clock tonight. So if you're really looking for the longevity secret of it
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
right? It's really understanding these parameters and then just trying to be thoughtful in guiding them. Now, I also want to be careful because there's some people out there that they freak out about this stuff. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh my gosh, my Aura ring said I got a 47 and it hijacked my whole day, Michael. And I'm,
I
I'm,
thought I
I'm
was
definitely
fine.
dying,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Number one, relax. Okay.
Mhm.
Like you're not dying. Okay.
Mhm.
Like number one, like I love Aura and I have a lot of my patients utilize it, but it's not particularly accurate. Okay.
No.
Like
No.
it's just not. It's maybe 80% accurate night to night, much less versus full nighttime polysomnography. So like when you're thinking about these things, people have a tendency to say, just give me the rules and I'll just follow the rules. I'm sorry, but you know what? We're all different and we're all people and we're all individuals. And so there's flex. Like I try to tell people all the time, sleep is flexible. Okay. Every single night before you go to sleep, your body scans itself and figures out what happened and how much sleep it needs to repair all the damage. That's how much deep sleep you get. Then it scans yourself and says, wow, what kind of emotional day did I have? What kind of emotions do I need to process? And that's how much REM sleep you get. Like this unit is very, very good if you don't screw it up by
Yeah.
sitting in front of the television while your head is bobbing, watching Game of Thrones or Housewives of Beverly, whatever, and wondering, why aren't I sleeping really well? Come on, like this is not rocket science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you start to get tired and it's 10 o'clock at night, turn off the freaking TV. Go wash your face and brush your teeth, and then give yourself some runway to land the plane. Okay. Like sleep is not an on off switch. It's more like slowly pulling your foot off the gas and slowly putting your foot on the brake, right? There's a process that occurs there. Also, by the way, if you fall asleep in under 5 minutes, that's bad.
Okay,
Okay.
I was gonna ask you that because is that a myth or is that true? Because I've always told people if you're like, "I'm out as soon as my head hits the pillow," you're
Bad.
probably sleep deprived.
You got it, sister.
Okay.
Absolutely
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And that's what I try to explain to people. It's like sleep is a process that you need to honor and enjoy. Okay. Like, think about it. Here's the thing that gets me: sleep is recovery. Like, that's the bottom line. Why on earth would you do anything to stop your body's ability to recover? Like, it just doesn't make any logical sense, right?
Well, for the same reason people don't stretch,
Yeah,
right?
that's a great
They're
point.
gonna run, they're gonna lift weights, they're gonna get on the bike, they're gonna do all the things because they're doing, and we fail to appreciate the art of doing nothing because nothing actually is the last thing that's happening in your body when you're sleeping. And I don't know if people don't get that or they don't want to embrace it, but at some level, like I have this discussion with a friend at the gym all the time who's there 7 days a week and having shitty workout on top of shitty workout. I'm like, you need to take a day off because you will notice that the day you come back after the day off, you have like a crazy good workout because your body got to consolidate. And I think I'm not sure that people fully appreciate everything that happens in the brain and the body while they're getting there, which is why they freak out when they wake up and their Oura ring says they have a crappy stat.
Right, right. And people get so logged into the trackers that it
Mhm.
causes something called orthosomnia, which is where you get so freaked out by your data, you don't sleep. So again, people are taking this way too seriously. Now, I know why they're doing this.
Sure.
Is because there are a couple of sleep experts out there, not sleep doctors, by the way, but sleep experts, which, by the way, is a pretty different animal there. And we can talk about that. But there are people out there who've written books or who get on podcasts and they tell people, if you don't sleep at least 7.5 hours, the glymphatic system is not going to pull beta amyloid and tau out of your brain, and you're going to get Alzheimer's disease, right? It's all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
So number one, let's take a pause for a second. Let's talk about the difference between what is a sleep expert and what is a sleep doctor for half a second. Okay. Sleep experts are guys and gals who are researchers. Okay. They don't treat patients. Okay. They read research. And by the way, these are incredibly smart people. Okay. People who I read their research and I learn something from it. But what I do as a sleep doctor is I pressure test all those ideas in the field. Okay.
Yeah.
You probably know this as well. When you see something in research and then you look at it in the field, it can be wildly different. You can have incredibly different results, right? So I warn people, like when you read a book that tells you that if you don't get 7.5 hours of sleep, you're going to get Alzheimer's, that's stupid. Okay. That is not correct. That is not how it works in the field. Now, have those people done research studies in very controlled environments with very specific people and discovered these biological results? Of course they have. But sleep is flexible, okay? Think about what you're learning and then start to apply this to your life in a positive way. So moving forward, it's not that, oh my God, I've got to get 7.5 hours sleep. It's actually, hey, how can I regularize my sleep schedule? Whatever it happens to be. How can I make sure that my body is getting sleep based on my chronotype at the times that it needs it, right? It's easy. Wake up at the same time 7 days a week. Don't sleep in on the weekends. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. You want to catch up on sleep. But Michael, it's the only time I get any time to catch. I don't care. All right. All you're doing is giving your body a mixed biological signal at that point.
Yeah,
Right?
you know what I think is interesting about that is that I, as a whatever it is that I am, and I don't think I'm a dolphin. I think I'm the 6 I'm whoever wakes up at 6
You're
AM. I
probably a
forget.
lion.
I'm probably more of a lion, but, um, it doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I wake up at I can't sleep in. I
Exactly.
cannot sleep in.
That tells you
So
something right there.
that's what I mean, but I wonder all these people who are trying to sleep in on the weekends to catch up on their sleep, that they're actually fighting their chronotype during the week
Exactly.
and depriving themselves of so for the person whose boss is not as smart as the guy that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast,
Right.
um, for the people who are stuck with a boss who insists that they must keep to a certain schedule, but it completely contradicts their chronotype, what do they do? Like, what can they do to deal with
Question.
this?
Great and important question. So
Yeah.
number one, educate. Educate your boss. So I've had this happen with multiple patients where they're like, my boss won't budge. And I'm like, great, give me the phone number. I'll call your boss. And I call the boss and I say, it's very simple. I say, are you interested in the greatest productivity gains out of this employee? Yes or no?
Mhm.
Every single time they say yes. I say, great. So we're going to run an experiment for 2 weeks. We're going to change what time they come in. And let's see if their work product is better. Let's see if they're more successful. Let's see if they close bigger deals. Let's see if their idea set is better. Let's run the experiment. It's very rare that I get a boss who won't be willing to run the experiment, if I'm being honest with you. Because once I start to describe to them and I say, hey, are you an early bird or are you a night owl? They'll say, oh my gosh, I'm an early person. I'm sending emails out at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yeah, do you think your employees appreciate that? Oh my God, they hate it. They tell me all the time. Dude, like here we are having a discussion about chronotypes. So
Yeah.
it's not that hard to educate people. But let's say it's a little slightly different situation. Let's say it's your bed partner,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
let's say that you're a lion, which is an early person, and you're married to a wolf, which is a night person. Like, how the heck is that going to work? And by the way, when do you have sex? Right? Like, how is that all going to work itself out? Right? So we studied these types of things. And believe it or not, there's a lot of different ways that you can figure this out. As an example, when we looked at sex as an example, which is always the fun example that people want to know about, I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, what are the hormones that you need to have successful sex and that need to be raised and what need to be lowered, right? So you need 5 hormones to successfully have sex. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, adrenaline, and cortisol all need to be elevated. And melatonin, the sleep hormone, needs to be low. When we did the survey, I think it was like 78% of people have sex between 10 and 11:30 at night. What do you think your hormone profile looks like at that point in time? It's the opposite of what you
It's
want.
not exactly what you want.
It's
Yeah.
high melatonin and low all the other stuff. So that is hint number 1, okay, of how this works, right? Hint number 2, if you happen to be having sex with somebody who is biologically male, what do they wake up with in the morning? An
With any luck.
erection. right?
Yes.
Morning wood, okay,
Yes.
is how we define it. If that is not Mother Nature telling you when to use that thing, I don't know what is, okay? Like, you have to think about these, like listening to your body, listening to your biology. So when do people have sex? If you're a lion and you wake up super early and you're married to a wolf, just tell the wolf to stay up later, right? They're probably halfway up anyway because you're waking up at 4:30 and they're going to bed at 2, or have an early evening time where it's
Yeah.
7 o'clock at night, where your lion person isn't so exhausted and your wolf person's still got plenty of energy. Like, we actually created a matrix in the book where you could put your chronotype on one and your partner's chronotype on another, and we give early evening and early morning times. Here's where it gets really interesting, is when we surveyed people after we gave these recommendations, most of the women told us that they felt better connection with their partner when they were having sex in the morning time. It's not tonight I have a headache. It's not tonight I'm freaking exhausted, right?
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't work well for me. Unfortunately, when we surveyed the men, they just said anytime it was offered.
It
I
didn't really
swear.
matter.
I
They don't
swear, it's
care. I know.
unbelievable. Guys are like a whole different, lizard brain getting into that.
Yeah,
But
men are just not that picky.
we're not.
They
Absolutely
just want
not.
it. They
It's
just
just
want
like,
sex.
okay,
Sorry,
let's
guys,
go.
not to offend anybody, but I'm
Right.
just saying,
I'm with you. I'm here. I'm here to represent the male species on this
and
particular
you're with
conversation.
me. So I have another question for you. What about there's an experiment that gets rolled out quite often where the conversation is, all these people say that they're walk around saying they're night owls. And so these researchers took a bunch of these people and they sent them off camping. And they didn't have cell phones, no artificial light. They had a campfire, and I think overwhelmingly, I don't have the study in front of me, but overwhelmingly, most of the people were out cold by like
So
9 or
you have one part of the study that's not correct. It's
okay,
not
tell
that they
me.
were night owls, it's that they were insomniacs. Um,
Okay. All right.
right? And here's what ended up happening. The second we put them out in the woods for 2 weeks, their insomnia disappeared.
Wow.
Okay? And what's so fascinating about that is you're going to bed and rising with the sun. So that's helpful, number one. Number two, you don't have all of the pollutants, noise, light, all of those other things that are kind of going on. Also, by the way, being in nature is good for you. Okay. Like, I mean, come on, the studies are endless, about people who are, what is it, forest bathing now, where people go out into the forest and just breathe, just be quiet, just relax. It's so good for you. Right.
Yeah.
And when back in the, Neanderthal days, that's all they did. Right. Then this idiot Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. And now all of a sudden we got insomnia and we've got, working after hours, and we've got all this other stuff that gets in the way of our biology. So
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree. So if we were going to give some advice to someone who considers themselves an insomniac, where would you start them? Because I mean, obviously insomnia can be a very complex thing,
Oh, yeah,
but I'm sure that there's some foundational
there
low-hanging
is.
fruit that they can
Lucky
knock
you.
out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, there's different types of insomnia. So I want to break that down a little bit for people. So
Yeah.
there's the I can't fall asleep versus
Mhm.
the I can't stay asleep, right? And to be honest with you, the more popular is the I can't stay asleep. Most people, when their head hits the pillow, they're so damn exhausted, they're out in, 10, 15 minutes. And that's not usually the big issue, unless they're going to bed at the complete opposite time of their chronotype. So as an example, if you're a night owl and you're trying to go to bed at 7:30, that shit's
Not
not
gonna
going to
happen.
work.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's talk about the in the middle of the night insomnia, because if I'm being honest with you, that's the number one question that I get asked is,
Yeah, for
what do
sure.
I do if I wake up in the middle of the night, somewhere between 1 and 3 in the morning, and I can't fall back to sleep, Michael? What do I do? Okay. So it's going to take me about 3 minutes to get through this. I'm just warning you now. All right. Because we're going to, all right. So first of all, this is the most popular video that I've ever done on my YouTube channel. We've got almost 6 million views of this one. This is the one. If you're going to watch one, this is probably it. So it's all about biology, right? So your core body temperature rises till about 10:30 at night. And then it hits a peak and then it drops. As your core body temperature drops, that is a signal to your brain to release melatonin. Okay.
Okay.
Now, that's all well and good. By the way, that's part of the reason why we say sleep in a cool room, because if it's too hot, then your brain doesn't know it's cooling down. It doesn't release your melatonin. Now, your body keeps cooling until it gets to some point in time, and it has to turn on the internal furnace. Otherwise, you go hypothermic and you die. Okay. So guess what time it goes where the internal furnace kicks on?
1:00.
That's right. Between 1 and 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. And so your body naturally goes into a lighter stage of sleep. I want to be super duper clear. Every single human on earth wakes up between 1 and 3 in the evening or in the morning time. However, you don't remember it. Why? You got to be awake almost 45 seconds to realize that your brain is actually awake. So what happens is you kind of you roll over and you go back to sleep. Now, there's a group of people where that doesn't happen. Okay? Where they get up, they wake up, and then they're like, oh shit, I'm up. And then the monkey mind hits, right? They grab their phone, all of these different things. So let's walk through the process of what you should do and why you shouldn't do certain things. So the very first recommendation I'm going to tell you is don't go pee. Now you're probably
But
saying,
what if you have to pee?
okay, let's talk about that. So here's the thing.
Because there's a vasopressin story here. I know. I saw it in the book.
So here's the deal, is if you honestly have to pee, please go pee. But here's what usually people do, is they wake up and they say, well, I'm up. I might as well go pee. This is the dumbest idea in all of history. Let me explain why. In order to enter into a state of unconsciousness, you need a heart rate of about 60 or below. What do you think happens to your heart rate when you go from a lying position to a seated position to a standing position? Right. It jacks straight up. So don't go pee unless you really have to pee. Here's what a lot of people do is they're like, oh, well, I feel like there's a little pressure on my bladder. 74% of people are side sleepers. And so what's happened is you're sleeping and you're kind of curled up into that fetal position, and because of your physical position, you are putting pressure on your bladder. Roll over to your back, stretch out your arms, and count to 30. See if you still have to pee. If you don't, stay put. If you do, please get up and go pee. Like I had somebody comment like, should I put on some Depends and piss in my pants? No, go to the bathroom.
That'll keep you awake too.
Right, exactly. No, go to the bathroom. Now, on the way to the bathroom, by the way, do me a favor, put a strategically placed nightlight so you don't have to flip on the lights, because otherwise you just told your brain it's morning, and put one in the toilet, the water closet as well. And for guys, sit when you pee. Why? Because your heart rate is lower when you do that. When you're standing there and you're pushing to pee, especially as you get older, again, this increases your heart rate. By sitting on the toilet, your heart rate is a little bit lower and it's easier for you to get back to bed. Okay, now we've peed, we've gotten back to bed. Problem number 2, don't look at the clock. Okay, because here's what happens. You instantly do the mental math and now you're pissed off, right? You're like, oh shit, it's 3 o'clock and it's 6 and I got to get up. Sleep.
I'm going to be so tired tomorrow.
Right. And all of these thoughts start rolling through your head. What do you think happens to your heart rate? It instantly goes up. Again, this is all about your heart rate. Okay. If you can, don't look at the clock. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Everybody looks at the clock. I wish they didn't, but they do. Okay, you've looked at the clock. Now, what do I do, Michael? Well, you've got a couple of options here. Number 1, there's a few things that you need to understand. We've got to figure out how to get your heart rate back down and not have you become anxious. So in my book, I talk about a breathing technique called 4-7-8 breathing, right? Dr. Andrew Weil developed it for the Navy SEALs. I think somebody before him might have even developed it earlier. But this is an interesting technique, and let me explain the biology as to how it works. So it's a slow breath in for 4, you hold for 7, and then you push out for 8. I want to be clear. You don't push hard. This isn't like you're not trying to do crazy breathing. This is very relaxed in, very relaxed hold, very relaxed out. Let me explain what's going on. So whoever created this unit that we're all wandering around in, we've got 2 lungs. It turns out your lungs aren't equal. One of them has 3 lobes, the other has 2. The body, the way your body was created and the way your lung size was created is when you fully extend the lung and then it compresses, that's the amount of air that your system needs. Most people are shallow breathers. right? They're very quick in their breathing. And so they only use half the lung, which means your heart has to beat twice as fast. That's the math. That's like basic physics here, right? So what I tell people all the time is when you take a nice slow, deep breath in and you fully extend the lung, right? And then you hold for 7 and you use up all that air, and then you push for 8 and dump out all that excess carbon dioxide. Now, when you start to bring it in, your heart rate is starting to drop almost immediately because you're fully utilizing the organ as it was designed to be used, right? Now, I'm going to also tell you a problem with this whole 4-7-8 breathing thing. It wasn't very easy for me to do it when I first started. I had a hard time holding to 7, and I really had a hard time pushing to 8. So I modified it and I created 4-5-6 breathing for 2 weeks. And then I moved to 4-7-8, right? So again, there is no perfection here. This is all about, like, people are like, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. Shut up. You're not doing it wrong. Relax. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, okay? You'll be surprised at how well this works. If you can graduate to 4-7-8 from 4-5-6, you're aces in my book. Now, there's another problem. You have to do about 15 to 20 cycles of this for your heart rate to get down to 60 or below, which is kind of what we're shooting for. By the way, if there are any listeners out there who are on blood pressure medication and their heart rate never gets to 60 or below, that's okay. Your body has adapted to that. Don't worry. We're just using 60 as a generalized marker for most people. Okay, Michael, what's the problem? Why can't you count to 20 while you're counting 4-7-8 at the same time? Quite frankly, it's too complicated for me.
Well,
So
you don't need to. You're going to fall asleep.
some people do, but here's what I have people do is
Yeah.
if they're standing up, I have them create a little fist like this and put it down by their sides. And then when they go through one cycle, you stick out one finger. You go through a second cycle, you stick out a finger. By the time you get to 10 fingers, you know that you have gone 10 cycles, and now you retract 10 fingers, and almost nobody ever gets to 20. Okay. Now here's the magic behind this whole thing is you can't think while you count. So it is occupying your mind and distracting you from monkey mind, and it is lowering your heart rate at the same. This is the best two-way hack there is for sleep. I guarantee it, and it works very, very well. Now, we're going to have some listeners out there who are going to say, Michael, everybody knows about 4-7-8 breathing. I'll try it in the middle of the night, but who knows if I'm actually going to get there? And what happens if I go and I don't pee, I don't look at the clock, and I do my 4-7-8 and I'm still not asleep? That's okay. We've got a couple of other things to think about. One of them is called yoga nidra. Okay. So if you know and understand anything about yoga and yoga nidra, what it is it's the corpse pose where you're just lying in a relaxed state. In science, we call this non-sleep deep rest. Okay. Again, we stole it from yoga nidra. It turns out that it's actually rejuvenative, right? It's not like sleep, but if you do an hour of yoga nidra, it's like getting about 20 minutes of sleep. So first of all, if you do get through your 4-7-8 and you're just lying there, it's okay. Relax. You're actually doing your body some good by just lying there. But I want to be clear. If you're sitting there and you're getting pissed off, your heart rate's going in the wrong direction, get up and get out of bed. Go to a different room, someplace where you can find yourself to be a lot more relaxed, and you'll do much, much better. Okay. All right, Michael, I did 4-7-8. I did my yoga nidra. I even left the room. Now I've come back. It's not working. What do I do? It's called acceptance. Okay. It's okay. Your head isn't going to pop off tomorrow morning. Okay. You're not going to tell your boss that he's or she's an idiot in the morning. You're not going to say something to your partner that's so out of character. In the middle of the night, your brain is crazy. Okay. It makes you think things that are just not true. You get these massive cognitive distortions like, oh my God, if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I'm chopping off years off the back end of my life. There's almost no data to prove that. Right. So don't listen to your brain. Just accept it. What I do, and let me be honest with you, I have issues sometimes when I sleep. I mean, I don't have insomnia, but everybody gets this every once in a while. So what do I do if I've tried my 4-7-8 and I've tried my yoga nidra and it's not working? I just relax and I give myself the opportunity to meditate or, again, doing anything I can to avoid increasing my heart rate. If I have to get up and get out of bed, I will. Now, I will tell you the lower level limit is what I tell people is, look, if you've been lying in bed and it's been over an hour, right, and none of these techniques are working, maybe it's time to go ahead and get up and start your day.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's okay. But here is the cardinal sin that most people do that they shouldn't is let's say you just couldn't make it past 4:30 in the morning and you tried and you gave it your all and you did the Dr. Breus thing and everybody's thrilled with it. Okay, fine. Get up, start your day at 4:30. Don't go to bed early. This is the biggest problem that people do because they say, well, shit, I didn't sleep last night. Your circadian rhythm is still set for another time. So all you do is you get in bed and get pissed off again. And the washing machine goes over and over.
So what about naps? Because you talk about
I'm
those
a big
in
fan.
you talk about, and I mean, I've been opposed to naps since I was old enough to have an opinion. So I remember myself sneaking around the house behind my grandmother after she put me down for a nap, and I was
There you
probably
go.
2.
I know
So
exactly what kind of child you are now.
yeah,
I'm understanding quite a bit
I was
about
a
you
good
these days.
kid. I just didn't want to sleep.
Yeah.
I was busy. I had things to do. But you're a big fan of napping, and so in a case like that, would you be a fan of either the caffeine nap or because you talk like let's talk about a couple of different types of naps that you talk about in the book.
Yeah. So one of the big things to remember is if you have insomnia, don't nap. Period. Full stop.
Or
Don't do it.
insomniacs. Oh my
Okay.
god.
Because what ends up happening is you lower sleep drive, right?
Yeah.
And when you lower
Yeah.
sleep drive, you're screwed, right? And
Mhm.
so don't nap if you're an insomniac. Me personally, I love to nap on Saturday afternoons watching golf. They talk like Tiger is approaching the tee box. It's perfect, right? Rory is hit. It's fantastic. Like
Mhm.
you just fall. You can't do it watching football. There's just too much going on, right? So find your time for napping. But there's some types of naps out there. Okay.
Okay.
So one of them is I always tell people, look, if let's say you only got 5 hours of sleep the night before and you are just dragging ass and you need to do something, a 25-minute or shorter nap is going to be your friend. Problematic is when you go longer, sleep inertia kicks in and you feel worse, not better.
Okay.
So keep it 25 minutes or less. And you mentioned my friend, the Napa latte. So a Napa latte is where you take a cup of drip black coffee, just throw in 2 or 3 ice cubes merely to cool it down, slug it, and then take your nap. What ends up happening is you burn through the adenosine, which is making you feel sleepy. And caffeine and adenosine, if you look at their molecular structure, they're off by one molecule. So
Yeah.
what ends up happening is caffeine fits perfectly into that receptor site and you're good for 4 hours. But please don't do a Napa latte every day. That's not what it's designed to do, right? It's really designed for when you've had a really crappy night or you had that anticipatory anxiety where you're checking the clock all night long because you've got to catch a flight at, 7 o'clock in the morning and you're sure that your alarm is not going to go off at 5 when it needs to, right? Because everybody does that. Like, come on. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years. Like, I know my stuff. So like you have to kind of think through some of these idea sets and know what's going on. So as an example, when I have to fly across the country to go do television or whatever, and it's a 7 a.m. flight, which by the way, I hate to take, I have this anticipatory anxiety. I will take a short 25-minute nap timed on my watch or on my phone that wakes me up and I'll do it at the beginning of the flight, right?
Yeah.
Because again, the further north or earlier in the day that it is, the more sleep drive I'm going to develop throughout that daytime.
Throughout the day. Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of different ways you can go about doing it. Now, remember, napping for adults is very different than napping for children. Napping for children, just let them go, right? They need it. Their brain is developing. And by the way, you want to be able to do a couple of things around the house while they're napping. So let them sleep. Their napping is just fine.
Yeah. Um, so oh yeah, this is the question I had for you. Slow and fast caffeine slash melatonin metabolizers. This is
Sure.
another genetic thing. So some people burn through their caffeine or their melatonin faster than others. Is that going to affect their nap? Is that going to how does that play into this whole, and
So
not
I have
just napping, but even sleeping?
So I have a funny story to tell you.
Tell me.
So my doctor, the woman who takes care of me, her name is Dr. Carrie Bordinko, and she's lovely. She's been taking care of me for 15 years. And she tells me, Michael, I have an espresso and then I go to sleep. And she really does. Okay.
I believe, yeah.
And I'm like, you can't do that. Like, I'm the fucking sleep doctor. Okay. Like, you've got to stop doing this. And she says to me, she says, Michael, caffeine doesn't really affect me. And I'm like, BS, come on. So actually, we ran the studies and there are certain enzymes that she does not possess. It's unbelievable. She can drink as much caffeine as she wants and it will almost never have an effect on her. So that kind of opened my eyes to this idea of caffeine sensitivity, right? And so based on your genetic profile, and actually I think you can learn this in 23andMe or Ancestry or
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of
yeah. No,
those.
you don't need anything sophisticated for
Yeah,
this.
it doesn't have
Right
to be
there.
a big thing, but you can figure this out. And so then again, individualize your treatment, right? And so if
Mhm.
caffeine doesn't really affect you all that much, number one, why are you drinking it? Right? Like you probably don't need it. Like there's no nutritional value to caffeine. Like you can drink decaf coffee or matcha, which I actually like better because it's a great caffeine step down, right? So if I've got somebody who's drinking a pot of coffee a day, and we know, like I've had people end up in the ER who cold turkey themselves off of caffeine, having seizures and vomiting. So you really have to be careful. So I tell people, look, if you're a pot a day coffee drinker, fine, take your last cup a day and turn it into matcha, right?
Mhm.
And then the second cup to matcha, and then you can slowly stair step people out. It's called caffeine fading. It's
Mhm.
definitely a thing that works very, very well. Now let's talk about melatonin. So melatonin is interesting because people, what they produce their own melatonin. So, I mean, caffeine is an exogenous substance that we're putting into our system, and our bodies have sensitivities to how powerful it is, how much is in, so on and so forth. Melatonin's not like that, right? Melatonin is something that your pineal gland starts to produce and actually has specific to your brain. By the way, melatonin is produced in two places in the body. 80% of it is produced in the gut, and only about 20% of it is produced in the brain. And the brain melatonin is the one that has the largest effect on sleep. By the way, melatonin is a great antioxidant. There's
Mhm.
data to show that if you take melatonin, for example, during COVID, there was a lot of data that was started coming out that was showing it helps with immune function and things like that. So I'm specifically talking about not the pill that you're putting in your mouth, which by the way is probably an overdosage format and you probably shouldn't take it. I'm talking about the stuff that your brain actually produces. And so what's interesting is our brains sometimes don't produce enough melatonin for ourselves, right? And that's where sometimes an exogenous or a pill outside of the body form of melatonin can be taken. Now, if we're talking about melatonin in general, here's what I'll tell you. 95% of it is in an overdosage format. The correct dose, based on the data out of MIT, is somewhere between a half and 1.5 milligrams. You can't find it in that dosage. There's only one brand that I have found that does this. By the way, I have no association with them. It's called Herb Atonin, and it's 100% organic, which I love. They actually make it from seagrass, believe it or not, um, which is fascinating. So if you're looking for an organic, correct dosage melatonin, Herbatonin is definitely the kind of thing that you want to think about. But also the form that it comes in can be an issue, right? So if it's in a tablet or in a gummy, you got to swallow it. It mixes with stomach acid. 90% of it gets eaten up by stomach acid. Maybe 10% makes it to the brain where you want it to be. But if you use a tincture like a dropper underneath your
Mhm.
tongue, it goes up and in about 20 minutes. And now we're working on something here. I love melatonin in 3 situations: jet lag, shift work, or if you have a melatonin deficiency. A lot of people come to me and they're like, Michael, what's the best supplement that I can take to improve my sleep quality? That is the wrong question. Okay. The right question is from me, have you had any blood work done lately?
Mhm.
Here's the deal is there are at least 3 things that this unit must have in order to sleep. Magnesium, vitamin D, and iron are the 3 biggies. Yes, melatonin is big, but it's hard to test. These 3 things you can do on a blood test. Fix your deficiencies first and see how your body reacts. Okay. I can assure you, no one out there has a deficiency in ashwagandha. Okay.
No, they
Right.
don't.
It may be vitamin D and it may be magnesium. And again, once you get those up to par levels, your body might function perfectly. And you don't need 5-HTP, valerian, ashwagandha, GABA, whatever supplement du jour you're talking about. Now, I do have some people who come to me and they're like, hey, Michael, I checked all my blood work and I'm fine. I got plenty of magnesium. I got plenty of vitamin D. My iron's good. I don't know what my sleep is messed up. What should we consider doing? Then you look at the symptoms that they have and you match them to the data that shows on these herbs. And then you use clinical expertise or clinical intuition to say, hey, I've had 15 patients in my last 25 years that actually did well with melatonin. Let's look at that particular dosage and see if that could be helpful for you. By the way, there is one other caveat for melatonin that I think is important to talk about here is melatonin interacts with 4 different drug classes. Melatonin interacts with birth control. Yes, you heard me say that right. Birth control.
Wow.
Melatonin interacts with hypertension medication, diabetes medication, and here's the big one, SSRIs. By the way, if you don't know what these are antidepressant medications, okay? So if you're taking Zoloft, Paxil, Effexor, and you wander into the drugstore and you buy, 5 milligrams of melatonin because you think you're going to be helping your sleep, you could really mess yourself up, okay?
Really?
So please, this is a hormone, okay? Somehow or another, it slipped under the FDA guidelines back in 1974, and it should not have. The second thing I want to talk about with melatonin is it is not for children, period. Okay, for two separate reasons. Number one, I think it's something like 95% of children make 4 times the amount of melatonin that they need. So there's no real need for melatonin.
Yeah.
Number
There's
two,
no way.
why are you teaching your child they need a pill to sleep?
Yeah. Yeah.
A bad behavioral precedent to set. It's just stupid, right? What's happening? You're being a lazy parent.
What about to get over jet lag? Like on the rare cases.
So what were the 3 cases that I said?
Yeah, jet lag,
shift
Yeah.
work, and if you have a melatonin deficiency.
Yeah,
Now there
yeah.
is one group of children that I think we should double tap on just super quick, and that's children on the autism spectrum. There
Okay.
has been data to show that 5 to 7 milligrams of melatonin in these children has been helpful. I don't know why, and I don't think the data has borne that out for us yet, but I will tell you that that is kind of the caveat group. So if you have a child or a grandchild that is on the spectrum, melatonin might actually be helpful for them.
Interesting. So, yeah, there's so many melatonin questions I want to ask you, but there's so many other questions I want to ask you. I don't even know where to go.
I
There's
can
so
come
many
back. Don't
things.
worry, we can do
We're
part
gonna have to
2.
go back. Okay, let's do a couple of so you just I was gonna say let's do a couple of quick fire questions. And you just answered the vitamins and minerals that play a role in sleep. You just
Yep.
did that all by yourself.
Why, thank you.
We did naps.
We did.
We talked about that. Mouth tape.
Let's talk about mouth tape.
Yes or
Okay.
no? Because it's all the rage,
Yep,
or it has
yep.
been.
It has been. So here's the deal. Mouth tape became a thing because of congestion. So the reason that people sleep with their mouth open is because of nasal congestion. I think it's 94% of people will automatically close their mouth when they sleep. We want your mouth closed when you sleep. Why? It's like putting leaded gas in your engine, okay? There's no filter, right? Because your nose, it warms the air, it moistens the air, and it filters out all the particulates. Like that's the job of the nose. The job for the mouth is to eat and to speak. It is not to breathe, okay? And so we want the mouth closed, but because people have nasal congestion, their mouth drops open. So some idiot out there said, hey, let's tape our mouth shut and see what happens, okay? Let me explain why I think this is a terrible idea, okay? Number one is if you haven't been screened for sleep apnea, you mask all the symptoms of sleep apnea, and then you wake up a year from now having been taping your mouth shut, and now you got rip-roaring sleep apnea, which we could have treated much earlier on with much easier interventions, and now we're looking at surgical interventions, we're looking at CPAP machines, we're looking at all these different things that probably could have been avoided if you just had gotten yourself screened for sleep apnea. So number one, if you're gonna do mouth tape, which again, I'm not necessarily saying it's awful, but I just don't think it's a brilliant idea, get screened for sleep apnea. Most people don't realize it, but it's not hard to get screened for sleep apnea anymore. You know, it used to be you had to go to the hospital, you had to get a sleep test. It took days, if not weeks, to get in, a doctor, blah, blah, blah. I can have a sleep test sent to your home for less than $200, which you can apply through your HSA or through your insurance, by the way. And we can answer the question in 72 hours. Like
Really?
this. It's remarkable.
So a GP in the US can do that. I mean, I'm in Canada, so we probably have different rules.
Even better, if you're willing to pay the $200, just cash pay it and they'll send it right to your house. Like my website, thesleepdoctor.com, like we've
Yeah.
got a button, push it. It says, if you want to do a sleep test, guess what happens? You get it on a calendar, you talk with one of our doctors, you do a teledoc thing. They say, you know what? You do have symptoms of it. They send something to your house. You wear it on your wrist. In the morning, the data ports over to your phone. You now have a consult with your teledoc, and now you have your answer. Like
That's amazing.
it's
That's so much
ridiculous.
smarter than yeah, I mean, it's so much smarter than going into a lab where you're almost guaranteed to have a crappy night of sleep. Like, let's be clear.
Absolutely.
My
And
24-year-old
that's the
went
other
in.
part that I didn't even mention. Thank you for bringing it up. Is it's like your environment is so weird. I mean, Dude, I put 27 electrodes on people's heads. I put a video camera on them with belts across their chest. And I
Night,
say,
night.
sleep, like, come on. Like, who thinks that's going to be good? Right. And so it's really advanced. And so getting back to the idea of mouth tape, like, go ahead and get yourself screened for sleep apnea. It's $200 and then you're not causing yourself any problems. Now, let's say you've done that. You don't have sleep apnea. Your mouth drops open and you still want it to be closed. Number one, think about nasal steroid sprays like Flonase and Arabend and things like that. These are over the counter here in the US. I don't know what they are in Canada, but these are nasal steroid sprays that are systemic. They don't blow out your system. They just stay
We just
in the
stay there.
tissue, just stay
Okay.
in the tissue, and they reduce the size of the tissue. Or,
Mhm.
by the way, a saline wash. It's called a neti pot. They've been using them for thousands and thousands of years to clean out your sinuses. This is not hard to do. If you've done everything and, oh my God, I've got a deviated septum and I've got huge turbinates and I just have to do it. Okay, we're there. Here's what you're going to do. Do not, I repeat, do not put tape horizontally across your mouth. That is stupid, because what happens is in the middle of the night when you wake up to breathe, it literally rips all the skin off your lips. Think about how sensitive the skin is on your lips. When you go outside, they get chapped just from the cold. Can you imagine if you got a piece of adhesive tape that you're ripping off of your mouth, how much damage that's going to do? Again, pure stupidity in my eyes. Go to CVS or Duane Reade or one of the drugstores. It's called micropore tape. It's by a company called 3M. We use it in surgery and it's also in first aid kits. So if you go to the first aid aisle, you can buy an entire roll of this stuff for about $3
Yeah.
and you're fine. I do have to say there's one thing that drives me crazy about mouth tape is there are now companies that are utilizing verbiage that is completely inappropriate. There's one called hostage. Now, I can't think of anything more fucking disgusting than, we still have hostages in
Yeah.
places in the world, and these
Yeah.
people are marketing this stuff. I can't take it.
I haven't actually seen that.
Feel lucky.
Yeah, there's some
Phew, I
there's
was on a soapbox there for a minute. Holy cow.
you were rolling
I
there,
was
let me tell
rolling.
you. You were rocking and rolling. Okay, so let's see. Where are we at time? Okay, we're on time. We're up on time. So let's finish off with a couple of lists from the good doc. Um, and we didn't even get, we did get to breath, which I love. The 478 and the box breath, I think, are two of the most powerful tools
Great tools.
on the planet. Like before you get to any of the vibrating gizmos and gadgets and whatnot, just use your breath and it'll take you pretty far. That we didn't talk much about hydration, but we'll leave that for another day. We had to leave something for another day.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
but let's leave our audience with, oh, actually, can I have one more question?
As many as you want, dear.
Okay. You mentioned menopausal women and hormones, progesterone. Is that, I feel like
That is
that
the
has to be
magic
one of,
hormone.
yeah,
That is
like
the
that
magic
is one
hormone.
of the boxes that has to be checked. Yes?
Yes. So I'm not supposed to say this, but my wife is going through menopause right now and she just started HRT. And the only thing that stopped her hot flashes and has allowed her to sleep halfway decent has been progesterone. So
Right.
we have to be very, very clear about this. I'm 57 years old. So in my generation of doctors, everybody was told, tell every woman out there, don't do HRT because she could get breast cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. This data was not only incorrect at the time, but is proliferated and still is incorrect. There's so much data to now show that HRT, especially bioidentical HRT, is so much more healthy than anybody ever thought that it was before. And again, I'm not an oncologist. I am not an OBGYN. I am not somebody that studies this. But what I can tell you is when we look at progesterone in particular, when it starts to get low, you just don't sleep. Now, here's what's interesting is we've actually known this for a very long time, not even looking at menopause, but just looking at women when they're getting their periods. Right.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
for a lot of my female patients, I have one bedtime before their period and a second bedtime after their period.
No kidding.
Yeah, because
Wow.
it's different needs, right? We have to look at the body with what the body gives us to look at, right?
Mhm.
And so for my female patients who are non-menopausal, but who are still going through having their periods, again, we look at how some women are exhausted before their period and have tons of energy after. Some women have got tons of energy before and exhausted after. Let's adapt. Again, sleep is flexible. You need to
Yeah.
really think through that idea, use the guidelines to kind of get you there.
Yeah. No,
But yeah,
that's
progesterone is
such good
big.
advice on the flexible sleep. All right. Well, then let's just leave our audience with your top 5 suggestions. Your
Absolutely.
top 5, and you can blend
Oh, I can
sleep,
blend.
hydration, and
Oh, I like that. Okay,
rest.
I'm gonna
You
come
can
up with
mix
this
it
on
up.
the fly.
All right.
So, number one, if you got nothing else from our conversation today, which was quite lively, by the way, I had a lot of fun doing it, is wake up at the same time 7 days a week. And if you can, do it based on your chronotype. That's a combo platter, but it works really, really well. If you don't know what your chronotype is, go to chronoquiz.com. That is my quiz. You can go there. You can learn all about your chronotype. And figure it out. By the way, if you do fill out the quiz, we send you the answers to what you are, what time you should go to bed, when you should drink coffee, all that kind of good stuff. So
Amazing.
again, wake up at the same time. And if you can't do it based on your chronotype, I don't care. Just do it.
Okay.
Pick one wake up time, 7 days a week. Number one tip. Okay. Number two tip. It's going to be about hydration since we didn't get a chance to talk about hydration. Sip, don't gulp. Let me explain. Every time I'm at the gym, somebody has got their water bottle and they've gone over to the thing and they're filling it up and then it gets halfway full and they and then they put it back in, right? I am the idiot that taps them on the shoulder and I say, "Hey, you know, you should sip, not gulp." And they always say the exact same thing to me. I'm just trying to get the water in. Right? I'm trying to get as much in as I can. And what I try to explain them is it's not going in, it's going through.
True.
Let me explain. So when you wake up in the morning, if you walk out into the kitchen and there's a square sitting next to the sink that used to be a sponge, it's the shriveled up thing that's almost as hard as wood, right? You could bang nails with this thing, right? That's you when you wake up, okay? Now, when you put that under the faucet and you open the faucet all the way, like gulping water, what happens? The water hits it, splashes off, doesn't absorb. But if you just open it up a little, like sipping water, and a few drops go on there, it absorbs, it forms, and now you have a tool that you can utilize for all kinds of things. This is sipping, not gulping. We are that sponge, okay? If you want to figure out how much water you need to drink, it's fairly simple. If your pee is clear or light yellow, you're good, okay? Don't go crazy. You're fine, right? So that's hint number 2. Number 3, I think environment and what we do during the day plays a large role. We haven't had a chance to really talk about alcohol, and alcohol really is one of the biggest offenders of sleep. Don't get me wrong. I love bourbon. Okay. A great red wine is awesome. Okay. But you really have to think about how it takes a toll on your sleep. What the data would suggest is the more alcohol you have and the closer to bedtime, the bigger effect it has on your sleep. So you heard it here. I'm suggesting day drinking. Yep, exactly. Okay. So
Okay,
if
how
you're
about 5 o'clock?
right,
5 o'clock
it's 5
cocktail.
o'clock somewhere, as Jimmy Buffett would say, right? If you move your alcohol to earlier in the day, here's what's fascinating is your liver doesn't know the difference, right? And so your liver produces something called alcohol dehydrogenase, which is the thing that actually is the enzyme that actually breaks down alcohol. It doesn't start until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is why when you're watching the Super Bowl and it's noon and you grab a beer, you catch a buzz off of one
Oh, yeah.
beer and you're like, where did that come from? It's because your body doesn't have any stuff in there. So all of this is to say, you really don't want to have a lot of alcohol close to bedtime. So here's what I tell people is number one, let's say it's 7 o'clock, right? You're going to bed at 11, right? It's 7 o'clock and you're having dinner. You have your one glass of wine. Now have one glass of water. Now you have your second glass of wine. Have your second glass of water. Now stop. The meal should probably be close to over. It's 8 o'clock at night. 3 hours later is 11. That's your bedtime. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's very straightforward. Now, if you do me one favor is if you can make the last drink that you have coconut water. Why? It's full of vitamin B, it's full of zinc, it's got a little bit of sugar in it, and it's definitely satisfying and it will help with the hangover. Also alternating, wine and water seems to do very, very well. So if I give a general recommendation, it's stop alcohol 3 hours before bed, limit yourself to 2 drinks. The
Got it.
fourth one that I really think is the easiest way to improve your sleep other than waking up at the same time every day, move your ass. Okay. Like you've got to move. You've got to be active. Okay. You don't have to run a marathon, but you need to move every single day. I'm 57 years old. My big thing is flexibility and mobility, right? I
Yeah.
stretch more than I lift, right? I walk more than I run, right? I do all of these things because that overall accumulates and helps my body sleep better. It also helps my body move better. It also helps my body hydrate better. It helps my body metabolize better. All of these things are good and important. Again, you don't have to do something crazy. I'm talking go take your dog for a walk for 20 minutes after dinner. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the best habits you can possibly have. And if you don't have a dog, buy one or pretend. Okay. I don't
Borrow
care.
one.
Right. Or borrow one, right? Your neighbor probably doesn't want to walk their dog. Go walk your cat. I don't care. Just get your butt out and moving. You'll be happy that you did. One small caveat is you probably don't want to exercise too close to bedtime because you don't want to increase your core body temperature. So if you can, maybe stop about 3 hours before bed or so. And I think you'd be in good shape.
Okay.
The final thing I think that I would tell people is I think I'd like to land on breath work. It's just I just wish I had learned it earlier in my career. I could have helped so many people, including myself. Like, as you can probably tell, I have a decent amount of anxiety that runs through my body on any given day. And breath work is one of those things that really helps me out. And by the way, breath work is not just for sleep. I do it during the daytime. I was doing it right before I came on this podcast. It helps center me and it helps bring
Mhm.
me focus. Right. And I think that is really, really worthwhile for people to understand and just explore it. And you might be thinking, breath work. I mean, that sounds so California crazy. Like, what
It
are these
works.
idiots out there doing? Like, newsflash, people have been breathing since the dawn of time. And by the way, if you talk to the yogis and the Ayurvedics and all the people that have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, they can show you how breath can turn on your sympathetic nervous system or turn off your sympathetic and turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. So remember, the autonomic nervous system controls all the nerves in the body. Sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. You can use breath work to turn either one of these on at will. Okay. You can 100% control your sleep and you can control your nervous system just with breath work, hydration, and a few guidelines.
Love it. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. I think we've barely scratched the surface, but we're going to let you go. So where can people go and learn more? You've given them, let's restate the
Yes.
Chrono quiz, and then where can they get all your good stuff?
Chronoquiz.com. And then if you're interested in getting a sleep test, you can go to thesleepdoctor.com/Dr. Mike. You'll go to a direct page for that. Also, I'm on social media. I do TikToks and I do Instagrams and I do Facebooks and all this other stuff. And it's fun information. It's good stuff for people to get to. I would say if you really want to do a deep dive, go to my YouTube channel. We've got over 800 videos there, and I really explain the biology in what I feel like is a fun, easy, kind of acceptable way. And it's not overwhelming. Like the goal is not to, boggle you with the science. The goal is to take highly difficult concepts and break them down into bite-sized chunks that are actionable. So I'm always looking for what do I do or what do I tell my patients to do? Again, the difference between a sleep doctor versus a sleep expert is sleep experts are going to give you a lot of great information. Unfortunately, they don't necessarily tell you what to do. My goal has always been to fix people's sleep, not study it.
Love it. Dr. Breus, thank you. It's
Thank
been
you.
an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. This was super fun. Thank you guys. And hey, wishing everybody out there sweet dreams.
Thank you.